Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our bonus episode of Keeping Up with Conspicuous. And today we are joined by the amazing Greg Hancock, who is Managing Director at RoundedEdge. Thank you so much for coming on, Greg. I know we've had a couple of conversations prior to this, but it's nice to actually get you on and know more about your expertise.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So, obviously, you've been in the community many years now, but for those that don't know about yourself and where you've come from, what it is that your journey has sort of been, let's start there, because it's always a good one to start with.
Sure. Yeah. So I started in the in the Microsoft Dynamics space, getting on for 20 years now. Is as old as my son, and he's nearly 18, so 18 years. When I sort of stumbled across it, and sort of worked my way through very small partner, where I was number 7 employee, through to larger, through to cyber, which was a few hundred, and then eventually IBM, where I stayed for 7 years. Eventually moving up the ranks to become a practice lead for the UK at IBM. Made my dream move to Microsoft for what was sadly a short period, but took a role as technical specialist director at Microsoft. Subsequently been at KPMG as well. Mainly, focused on delivery over the years, but in the roles that I've taken sales roles, pre-sales roles, and managed obviously significant number of people and significant number of projects. So been right the way across the board, from small, tiny projects for a few thousand, right the way through to enterprise projects for multiples of millions.
Wow, good journey. That definitely a lot of skills to you there. That is
couple of things, couple of scars, a few grey hairs.
A journey. It's fine. But obviously, you've, as you said, you've got many years experience. You've worked from smaller companies up until large enterprise companies, a lot of different projects. You've seen a lot of successes, fails, etc. Now, you have actually become the managing director of a company called RoundedEdge. So for those that don't know what that company is, what is it? What have you built this company on?
So the premise is really to solve the riddle of projects across the board, really to deliver project success. So the whole project life cycle is challenging. Everyone falls out in the middle of it, and you either recover it or you don't. The pre-sales and sales cycle through to delivery is challenging. The supply chain is a little bit broken along the way, and a lot of clients are investing serious amounts of money and not realizing the value of the product that they're buying. So the Microsoft Suite Dynamics Power Platform, it's payment mortgage. It's a fantastic tool. It's absolutely brilliant. And on the Microsoft side, we'd really, be able to sell the virtues of that product. And then when you get into delivery, you're then met with requirements that maybe don't meet the product, and vice versa, and you go through a whole journey along that. So the premise of RoundedEdge is really to sit squarely in the middle between Microsoft partner, Microsoft themselves, and the client to deliver that value to the client.
It's interesting. I haven't really heard of a company that do that before, and I think it's a tough gig to do, especially dealing with the project side. But for someone who's got as much experience as you and have seen what works, what doesn't work, etc., I think it's a really valuable asset to have in the market for sure. I've got one question. I think I already know the answer, but have you ever seen a project run smoothly from end to end with no issues?
Probably not any project of any size. So I mean, there's always issues, and it's how you structure to mitigate those issues that are important. So I've delivered incredibly successful projects, but they've been through challenging stages throughout. But because we structured it well, we have the right people on board, we've got that communication, that dialogue going, we managed to mitigate those and get through them and be successful at the end of it. So I think that unless it's a very small sort of plug and play kind of option, then the reality is you're going to meet some challenges, and it's often expectations and assumptions are the biggest challenge. So client assumes that the partner is going to deliver X, Y, Z, data, training, etc. Partner hasn't necessarily costed that in, or you meet some technical challenges along the way that then push the boundaries and the timescales, or the functional requirements aren't quite what they pertain to be at the beginning. You always go through this kind of slight bell curve dip. It's as long as you've structured the project right and you've got the communication channels and you've got those mitigation methods in place, you can recover from it. And then it's about how do you recover and how quickly, and how do you get to success, and knowing what success means as well. That's the other challenge. A lot of projects, they go in and actually they don't have they've got no measure of the value. Users hate it, they're all disgruntled, but are they, or are they just don't like the change, don't like the new system? They want the old Excel back that they could do what they wanted with. But is the system providing value to the business and the metrics that you set from the start? If you haven't got those in place, you don't know. So you might have a few disgruntled users, but you could have a system that's really delivering value and will then evolve going forward. And the other part is that it doesn't end at go live as well. It's usually you've got a baseline product, and then you have to evolve it going forward. So it needs that continuous investment.
Absolutely. I think you put that really nicely, actually. And in a nutshell, what RoundedEdge want to deliver is that project assurance. You want to make sure that your clients get the end result that they want.
Yeah.
And
it's end to end as well. So we look at it from pre-project, mid-project, and post-project as well. So we can join at any stage in that life cycle, but obviously it's better to join pre-project. So the client I'm at the moment, I'm in their tiny little booth hiding away from the office. I joined 3 months prior to the discovery period kicking off, and they'd selected a partner, they'd selected Microsoft Dynamics, and then I joined to take them through that preparation ready for the discovery to kick off. And what we've done, so initially I did a 100-point health check, are you ready in these areas? And then we set out an assurance plan to get them ready and upskill their team and get people working on various things from comms to data and so on and so forth. So I've never been in a client that's as ahead of the game as we are now, because I've approached it like we're actually kicking the project off, when actually the partner hasn't joined fully until April, when we kick off the 6 weeks discovery that we're going to go in. But we're walking into that with the collateral ready to go. We can show and share information. We've got the data, schema maps, etc., already ready to give over to that partner, rather than what historically I've seen. You walk in, the partner asks a load of questions and say, oh yeah, we'll have to go and get that and we'll provide that to you. But we're ahead of the curve. So pre-project is absolutely ideal situation to be in a real ideal situation. I'll be even before that as part of the vendor selection. But then obviously you've got mid-project going into that recovery, or helping bring in some of those skills into the client that they may not already have, providing training, providing data resources, etc., to be able to get them through the project where the partner is doing their side of things, but the client often doesn't have skills and resources and time to dedicate to the project to deliver on their side of things. And then obviously if you've got project failure as well, we can come and help mitigate and rescue that and bring it back on track as well. So the whole life cycle is where we join, but ideally it's as early as possible, and then you can mitigate these issues before they come on track. And we've got a framework that identifies those. As I say, we do a 100-point check, and then we build a framework that makes sure that we recheck and say, have we got these items in place, and moving forward in a timely manner. We build the governance structure. We work with the partner. We assess their statement of work even, and pulled it apart, unfortunately for them. So yes, we do the end to end.
For sure. I mean, it's such a well thought out business. I think you've definitely really identified those pain points of what clients and partners go through, and like, hey, there's the hurdle, but let me get rid of that for you. I think one of the key things that you're really helping with is that education piece. I think for end users especially, obviously, it's so easy to just sort of nod and be like, yeah, go for it. Or, it's easy to sort of get wrapped up in not really knowing what that end goal is. And that's where it can become so difficult. So as you said, ideally right from the start is where you can help.
Or just assuming that the partner's going to do it for you. So for example, environments and infrastructure, you want to try and retain the control over those environments and infrastructure within the end client. But there can be an assumption, oh yeah, we'll just get the partner to do that. Are you going to give them the keys to your Azure environment? Are you going to, give them full access to set up and do things? And actually, how do you know they're doing it in the best way? Have they got a full ALM structure and release cycle structure and all that kind of stuff that is the best practice, or are they just doing it their way? And I've seen even recently some in terms of deployments and environments, not the best practices being operated. So if the client doesn't know, they can't hold the partner to account, and if the partner's not pushing those things, then the client's not getting the best implementation that they want. But it's not a let's kick the partner thing, because there's some fantastic ones that work for some fantastic ones. The one in the client here is absolutely brilliant. But there's these little things where it's assumed that the client know one thing and the partners they assume that the partner's going to deliver it, and actually you end up with something that's not perfect at the end, and then you're given a system that you own and maybe don't even know how to operate or manage from an IT perspective going forward.
For sure. And as you sort of touched upon as well, that vendor selection part you can help with, which I think is quite key. You know all the different partners, what would suit certain different businesses, and what, once again, knowing what they want and being able to sort of help be like, this is the right partner for you, etc. So just that partnership and referral type scheme, I think, is really beneficial in this industry too.
Without a doubt, yeah. There's a lot of partners that have got some great IP and some industry knowledge that really bring that to the table. But is it just a great demo, or is it something that actually gets used? And I've been guilty to show a great little tool that we've built in a demo that never makes it to the client site, because it's just something that you're kind of showing off, or it doesn't quite fit their need, but it looks really cool in the demo and that kind of stuff. So being able to identify core product versus partner IP, and being able to assess whether or not they're really going to be able to deliver what they're selling you at the time.
Absolutely. And I know we have got a comment from Liam Cole, who I do know. Are you aware of Liam Cole? Do you know who he is?
Don't know the name. No.
Well,
I always feel
you might have a new connection after this.
If I don't know people in the industry, I always feel like, how have we got this far without knowing each other? But yes, go on then.
But he said that when users are fighting change, it's important to highlight what benefits they're gaining from it, e.g. moving forwards to advanced warehousing on BC. Most users hate introduction to warehouse shipments as an extra step, but this step is allowing things like staging areas or removing a step that someone else was doing in the offices. Now, I think that's quite important, because people are hard to work with. Dealing with humans is difficult, and having that clear communication is super important, because people are reluctant to change still. There's a lot of people stuck in their ways, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but unfortunately, if you're going to be in a tech industry or dealing with tech, it's always going to evolve, isn't it? There's no way to stop that, so you will be left behind ultimately.
Yeah. And I used to be a bit of a rebel against change programs as well. I couldn't quite see the value in them back we're talking over 10 years ago. Just get on with it, we'll train you, just get on with it. And then we delivered a multi-country project for an automotive manufacturer, and it was the first time we had a true change budget. and I was working for IBM at the time. So we had the IT and the system implementation, and we had a true change budget working alongside it. And it was fractious, that relationship. There'll be a few people chuckling when I say that. But the reality is, we got to a point where we were then able to roll out a system to 4 countries per month, and we did 18 over a course of about 4 months in the end, which in that organization, who'd spent 20 years trying to implement their previous system and not released it to all the country locations at that time, was completely unprecedented. But it was because we built that change program, and we took it to each country and said, tell us why it doesn't work, rather than tell us what you want it to do. And then we kind of built a kind of RAG status on critical changes that we needed to do to go live in that country. And we were able to just roll this solution out, and it was incredibly successful. So I'm a massive advocate of a change program from the start. We've got one going on here in my current client. My next meeting is to sit down with the change team, and we haven't even kicked the project off. We're 6 weeks off it. So it's critical bringing those users on board, bringing those people on board right from the very, very start, the communication, letting them see the system before they go into a discovery, so they know what they're actually trying to build, or trying to give information on the requirements out. All of those things are key, rather and ensuring that one user that doesn't speak at the back of the room gets a voice, because it's guarantee at the end of the project they go, well, it doesn't work for me, I didn't want it. And you're like, well, you sat in every workshop but you didn't speak. So you've got to bring those people on board and get them to embrace it, and actually have the system meet their needs at the end of it. And the final point on that is not over engineering as well. So you can have all that input in there, and you can build every system and every process and automation that you want in there. But the reality is, you want to keep it really simple. You want to make their life easier. You want less screens, less processes, and then you can build on it from there and get that core usage going right from the start. So it's critical that you get the people on board.
Absolutely. And do you feel like you try and get as much as the company on board from early stages it is in, having conversations with them? Who are the main people you sort of target in a business to make sure everyone's on the same page and you're covering everyone's needs? It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it is, and it comes around from a changing comms plan, right? It's not just we're going to target these individuals and we're going to target these individuals, but it's about having open communication, having what we're in a situation now. There's a little bit of a grey area where everyone's going, oh yeah, what's happening with that CRM system? We went through a whole procurement process. I've not heard anything about it since. So it's making that announcement saying, this is where we're at. We've selected a partner. We've selected the software. We're kicking off in April. You will be expected to do these. This is, you're either involved as an SME or you're not. So it's about having a complete program alongside the implementation to drive that change, rather than targeting individuals. One thing that we've got now is we've got SMEs who are essentially call center workers or salespeople coming into a room to describe how they want a system to work, and we need to manage that to a certain degree, but also give them the voice to be able to share their needs. So we're individually targeting those. We're giving them access to view the system, and Microsoft have been incredibly helpful in providing us with demos and click-through demos that we can share with them. So they're coming into the room knowing what the system looks like in its vanilla instance, but actually then starting to talk about the requirements and things that they need it to do going forward. So you sort of build a comms change plan, and then you target the individuals within it with different messaging according to what's needed. And bringing the steerco on board has been a key thing. So we've really pinpointed who we want in that steerco, and made sure that they're the ones driving the message with their teams below it as well.
Absolutely. No, it definitely is important. And I don't know if you know, but obviously we're users of Dynamics, and I know when our partner comes in and sits us down, they try and make sure they sort of like address everyone. I'm always the loudmouth in the room that's like, can we try and make this happen?
I can't imagine
that
that to be true, Lucy.
So I know, as you said, there's probably a couple of people in our company that could just sit back and watch it all unfold, but then be like, oh, but maybe I wanted a bit of this. And if you don't sort of have that communication and reach out to everyone, it is hard. But
and are they going to be the disruptors when it goes live? You know, the last thing you want is that those people saying it doesn't work for me, it's not right, and then that negativity can spread. You know, I implemented a system for the British Horse Society many years ago, and there was one lady who'd done one job for many years, you know, membership payments, etc., and we just didn't quite meet her requirements, and she then sort of became somebody that didn't want to adopt the system, but she was critical to the whole system working. So, you know, we should have embraced her earlier on and really brought her into the project and really listened to her, and maybe had some very definite, you know, one-to-one conversations to make sure that, because she had a critical role and she was the only person that knew how to do that. So you've got to identify those. Not always easy, but you know, if you can identify those people that are sitting back and make sure that they, you know, find out what their role is, find out how critical it is, and bring them into the project, you can. And in reality, often the partner doesn't have the time to do that. They're not running the change program. They're running an IT delivery. So you tell me you want it to do this, you tell me you want the data there, you tell me you want the schema to do this and the forms to look like that. I'm going to go and design and build it. And designing, building, gathering requirements is an enormous amount of information you've got going in your head as a functional consultant. To then be worrying about people and change is also, you know, difficult. So you need to wrap that around it as well, and you need individuals to be identified. So yeah, that's part of the thing that I'm doing in the room. But also we're very fortunate that we've got a whole change in communications team within this particular project, internally already available, that we're just aligning them. We're just getting them on board for a Microsoft delivery.
I see. Well, I know we've had a comment from Jeff Smith just saying that wants and needs are very different. But if you're not vocal in workshops, then change becomes challenging, which, yeah, very, very true from you, Jeff. And I think the nice thing from your point of view is, as a business, you're just trying to squish those problems before they become problems. Because I think you had a couple of stats, didn't you, regarding how many CRM projects actually fail? And if I'm right, it was 50%.
Yeah, yeah. You say it like that because I told you it's 70 and it's 50. Yeah, 50%. I think it's. I think there's a Gartner stat that there's 50% failure rate on CRM projects, and I think the Forrester stat is 20% of negative return on investment, with a lack of change and adoption. Both stats are on my website, by the way, if you want to go and have a look. So yeah, I mean, it is crazy, and I used to joke, you know, you never get a successful project, and as an implementer, you can have a successful project, but do you get to see the users adopting and using the system and really embracing it and getting the benefit from it, and actually going back and saying, are you getting the return on investment? As an implementer, very rarely, you know, it's very loud when you got a load of problems and the system's broken and it doesn't do what they want, but they're very quiet when it works. And then you're thinking, I don't know, are you getting the value? So, you know, it's being able to really look at that at the end and saying, okay, you said you wanted to achieve this, you wanted to reduce the number of clicks, the number of screens, the number of processes, you know, all of those sort of things, and then going back and saying, have you achieved that? Okay, so-and-so in the corner doesn't like it because they loved Excel, but they can do all these things and the business is getting value, and we're saving money because we're saving time and we're delivering better customer service and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's very important that is identified up front and then reassessed throughout the project and throughout the go live.
Absolutely. And I guess from your perspective nowadays, there's going to be a lot more things you're going to be addressing within businesses with the tech evolving. I know every podcast is going to come up, but like AI and low code and all these, you know, agentic agents popping up and everything like that.
Yeah.
The education piece is going to be changing from your perspective and what you're going to have to communicate. So how has that sort of impacted you? What are your views on all of that?
It's interesting. So a good colleague of mine in the industry messaged me the other day and said, "What's my view on Satya's statement around, you know, SaaS is dying essentially?" And it's like, oh great, there goes my career. But my view is, first of all, Microsoft are carving the way for the industry, so they're already 2 to 5 years ahead of the actual real implementation and the real world. So they're saying these messages ahead of time. In this is my opinion, by the way, but I think other people, I think other people would agree. So, you know, a few years ago, Power Platform, you know, was massive. It's all about citizen development, whatever. In enterprise, like, you know, banks and areas that I've worked in the past, they're behind the curve. So Microsoft are driving the message, and then the implementation and the adoption is slowly catching up behind. And I think the same will happen with AI. It is really, you know, rapidly being adopted. You've got to get your foundations right. If you haven't got your data right and you haven't got your foundations in place, then you can't automate and you can't necessarily build AI, because it needs to learn off something, right? And if that isn't right in the first place, then what are you actually driving it and teaching it? And then I suspect it will be incremental. So you'll have these agents doing, you know, baseline automation and, you know, in a call center, automated response and meeting those small level, you know, simple queries quite easily. And then that'll grow, and over, you know, 2, 5, 10 years, that automation will really become to the fore. So in the future, it will be a ton of automation. It will be AI led. We're making great use of it. Copilot's fantastic. You know, I use it daily to write emails. I just chuck email content and then say, sort that out into something for me. You know, to be able to do that in a customer service environment just saves tons of time. So that kind of automation is great, but it's still user led. And then we're going to grow and build from there. But you've got to get your foundations right. If you haven't got your data and your system and people and all that kind of thing in place, then it's not going to be trained and easy to run off the back of it. The other side of it is whether it's, you know, powerful enough to do the grand ideas that we've got. We're like, yeah, okay, let's chuck 50,000, you know, huge Word documents into it and provide the search, and then it kind of breaks and doesn't function in the way that you want, and you've got to learn to chunk those things down and deal with what we've got now. So I think it's not quite as ahead of the messaging as Microsoft and everyone is leading, but it is incredibly powerful, and it is going so quickly that actually, you know, those benefits are being realized very, very quickly, and then you'll get to the true automation that we're talking about, which is a bit scary, really, particularly
a little bit.
Yeah, it is a bit scary.
I think it definitely adds the pressure on from the get-go of project implementations. You know, you do have to get it right now. I think some mistakes, if they're not addressed early on now with AI, that will have a fundamental impact. I think the risks of it are going to be higher. This is my opinion from the outset, and I don't know if I'll be right or wrong, but I can imagine with all the new updates and new things coming in, I can imagine there's going to be a spike in potential project fails, and then over time it will go back up into success. I think purely because we're dealing with things that are new. Is that quite normal to see? I mean, you've been in the IT industry for many years now. I'm sure you've seen lots of new techs come out, but is that sort of the trend? Am I right in my thinking?
I'm not sure about I don't know about the industry kind of trend in that. There's two ways of looking at it. There's plug and play, and it just magically does everything that you want it to. And then there's a more concerted look of things, the kind of maybe the middle ground where you're using the plug and play, but you've worked through it a bit more carefully. So, for example, we use knowledge base, Dynamics knowledge base with Copilot baked in, but we did a bunch of testing and it was only really pulling out about 75% accuracy. So we had to change our data underneath to improve that accuracy. Whereas if we take the plug and play approach, it's like, oh, just chuck all that document and you'll get the perfect answer every time, you know, and you move through that cycle, then through to the more custom AI development where you really need to start thinking about, performance, data size, collateral size, all the rest of it, and that becomes a much more concerted approach. So in terms of, if I was building a Microsoft Dynamics implementation for customer service, for example, if you assume it's plug and play and that's going to work perfectly every single time, you're probably going to have some failures. If you take a middle ground where you do some proper testing and make sure that the foundations are right and it's producing the right results for you, then you start to get real improvements in performance through that out of the box functionality. And then if you really want to sort of take it to the next level and build some custom AI solutions, etc., then obviously you need to go through a whole project life cycle on those.
Definitely. That's a really interesting view, actually. I think, there's so many areas about that you could probably go into and discuss. Now, one of the questions I did want to ask is, from your perspective, what do you think is the biggest, I know there will be a few different answers, but out of all of them, what is the biggest cause to project failure, in your opinion?
It's based around assumptions, and you can go right back to a statement of work and look at and break that down, and there's an assumption that it will all be all right in the end, and actually when it goes wrong, you then go back to statement of work and it's not written correctly. So for example, we're going to provide comprehensive training written in statement of work. Everyone's happy with that. Partners thinking we're going to do 3 days train the trainer. Clients thinking you're going to write 7,000 documents in 6 different languages and roll that out across the globe, right? So when it comes down to the difficult conversations in the project, and you then go back to that kind of assumption that is all done in good faith and everyone right from the outset, then you start to get those failures. And certainly in the kind of statement of work area, training, data, who's managing the data, who's responsible for data cleansing, who's migrating that data, who's extracting it from the legacy system, how long is that going to take? Is it such a big file and is it encrypted that it's going to take us a week to download it and get it into a usable format? Can I upload it down into the cloud, into Dynamics easily? All that kind of stuff. You assume it's all going to be right in the end, but if you haven't prepped it early enough and then you go, right, let's migrate, and you find out you've got this huge file that you can't uncrypt and load into the database, and it's going to take a week to load, then your project immediately delays. Let's go live on Friday. Well, actually can't, because the other thing. Then you pump all the data in, which maybe comes from another third-party system, and it doesn't look right to the user because they were doing something on the front end of the other system. Then the user's saying, well, why is there 3 rows for this particular client? Why is it XYZ limited? Why does it appear 3 times? Well, that's because the data told me that it was consolidated into 1 in the previous system. So you assume that it's going to be a simple data migration or a data load or something like that, and then you end up with those problems. So assumption is, and any relationship, right? Personal relationships, if you assume, then you're gonna come unstuck. So it's about early insight, and that's what we bring, is early insight into the potential challenges and things you need to think about, and then plan that into the project before they become an issue later down the line. So it's all about assumption and just assuming that they're going to do this, they're going to provide this, it's all going to be all right in the end, and then you go through those difficult things. But the recovery part is about having that structure in order to recover. So when it does go wrong, when they're in sticky challenges or difficult technical decisions, and you've got a timeline, and it's going to cost you money if you go over that timeline, it is about how quickly and how hard everyone can work to go and get that mitigated and that delivered. And if you haven't got that structure in place and that team mentality, then it's all going to fall down as well.
No, they're really good answers. I was getting the giggles at the start, because have you watched Reacher?
Yeah,
series.
and read all the books. Yeah. Well, don't test me on it, but yeah, I have. Yeah.
As soon as you said assumptions, I was just thinking, Reacher, assumptions kill. And it's true. True. So there we go. You are the Reacher in Dynamics, solving things without
not as
Hey,
big.
maybe that should be a tagline. The
Yeah,
Reacher of Dynamics.
I love that. Thanks very much.
There we go. But no, I think it's super good to address those things as well. I know another comment has come in to say that he would have assuming's wrong, there we go, that the answer was going to be data. But also that, that definitely is a key factor. And I think we all know that, but just
I run a poll on my LinkedIn, which sort of gave 4 options: design, functional design, change management, people and time, and data as being the 4 options that people could select as the reasons for project failure. It was I can't even remember which one won. It was all pretty much equal across the board with different people, and I could look at who those people were and see why they're giving that particular answer. But the reality is all 4 of them and more, but they're the key 4 areas that you need to look at up front. People, we were going to talk about people. That's massive, right? If you can employ the best company in the world with the best presence and the best formulas and methods and of delivery and all the rest of it, but if they get the wrong people on the pitch when it comes to delivery, you're going to fail up front. And I've sadly been part of those deliveries in the past where great pre-sales, the brand, the business that you're positioning is excellent, and then you go to get the delivery team, and you've got the bench, or you go to the contract market, and they're not arriving with all that IP that you've sold to the client and delivering that. They're just essentially a team that have been cobbled together. So you've got to get the team right, and that, I mean, all about that, right? It's about getting the right people in the right roles in order to deliver and be successful, and they've got to build that relationship with the client and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think all of them are key, but you can pick any one apart if you want, but if you make assumptions on any of them, you're screwed.
Absolutely. No, Greg, you honestly put things across very well, and you can tell you're just a fountain of knowledge within this area, which is refreshing for the industry to have that. So look, I know we could chat for ages. I know you're on client site, so I won't keep you for too long. I think we've covered so many important areas. We will pop your website. Words are not coming to me today. We'll pop your website in the comments for people to have a look at. And I'm sure if anyone sort of has any questions, you'd be happy to sort of connect and answer them. Would that be right?
Absolutely. Yeah, open to network with anyone. I mean, that's how I've we only truly started this business in October, and it's we've got 3 clients on the go currently, and we've got more inquiries and pipeline down the line. So it's only through networking. And one thing I love doing is helping other people. You can see my values on my website, which is about giving and helping other people, not just about generating our pipeline and projects for us. Particularly helping people get roles as well is something I really get a kick out of. So happy to network and connect with anybody, and just advise, support in any way, shape or form.
Perfect. Well, honestly, you've covered so much. I think some really important areas that a lot of people are aware of, but maybe don't talk about enough. Now, obviously, we always end the podcast with our favourite question. And if you are not Greg Hancock, the Managing Director at RoundedEdge, and you cannot have a job within IT, and you can't say Jack Reacher, what job would you be within?
Oof. I'll go with a random one, whether it's currently true or not, but something like owning a paddleboard hire company in a sunny beach somewhere would be pretty amazing. Just yeah, why not?
Definitely. Well, if you ever open one up, let us know. Love a bit of paddle. Great gig that.
Free pass to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Perfect. Well, honestly, Greg,
a friend of mine, I said that as a joke to my friend, and then 3 months later he went and bought a water park in Ohio. So who's to say it's not possible?
You never know. I know you're a busy man, but it's always time for a bit of paddle if you can. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining. It's nice to hear a different mindset on what you can bring into the industry, and I wish you guys the best of luck. I think
Thank you very much.
you'll definitely thrive. So we'll keep in contact, but for any other comments that may come in after, we'll keep an eye on them and answer them. But if not, Greg, thank you so much for joining, and we will see everyone next week.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Cheers.